is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into this week's edition of 21 Questions, presented by you fine folks on the KCSN Discord here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined by Matt Lane for this week's edition. Matty, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're back. Me and you we're here back. We're back again.
Yep.
We're ready to sit down. We're ready to answer some questions. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say a lot of people want to know about stuff about training camp, and we've talked a lot about training camp lately. That's what's going on. So we're trying to hunt down some of the fun questions. Don't. I'm not trying to make anyone mad if we don't choose your camp related question here. Just we've been talking a lot about camp, so we're kind of searching and hunting for anything that might be a little different than stuff we've talked about for the past couple shows that we've done. So no offense, we appreciate all the questions, everybody, but
yes,
we're trying to reach out here a little bit.
Trying to broaden the old horizons, because as Matty mentioned, I've been doing these daily YouTube videos. If you're not, subscribed there, going over to our KCSN YouTube channel. I'm giving you all the camp rundown, the injury reports, the news, everything like that. And you guys are also talking about 2 times a week on the KC Lab. If you subscribe to this channel, you probably know the KC Lab already. But we get these questions from our Discord. You become a member of the Discord when you subscribe to the KCSN Substack. It's $30 a year, $5 a month. You get in your email confirmation, you'll get a link to that Discord where you can join it and ask questions for the 21 Questions podcast. Now, we don't like to just limit that to just the Chiefs. We get a lot of Chiefs questions, obviously, because that's the big thing to talk about. But there's a lot of things. We've got some college football questions in here. We've got some Hall of Fame questions. We've got a bunch of different stuff to get to. So, Maddie, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. This first one is a Chiefs question. It's from Just DRK. We always hear last year's champs now, quote, have a target on their back or are the, quote, hunted. Do we really think teams will play against us, as in the Chiefs, any differently than they have the last 4 seasons? Feel like we've had the target the entire time. What are your thoughts on that, Maddie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of nails it. The Chiefs have been that team essentially since the Patriots kind of were no longer the Patriots, right? In the AFC, every team has taken the Chiefs super seriously. We've seen that week in and week out, and how many close games the Chiefs play throughout the regular season versus teams that don't end up being near as good as them overall over the last few years. So no, I don't think it's any different for the Chiefs. They can't come out and have a lackluster week without kind of paying for it, because
right.
Every play is going to be up for that game. They're going to be ready. Over the past 4 years, the Chiefs have probably beaten their opponent at some point in time. The Chiefs are going to be seen as the biggest threat to winning the Super Bowl for most teams. So yeah, that's the Chiefs' normal now, right? Their normal is being the team with the target on their back. That's fine. I think they've learned to embrace it. I think last year was big. They no longer they found a way to put a chip on their shoulder, like publicly, but I think it's more so they're putting the chip on their shoulder as in like, okay, everyone wants to beat us. We know that. We're going to find a way to take that personally, rather than like necessarily thinking that they are the actual underdogs. And like, I think they're finally comfortable with that, which I don't know if they were in the previous couple seasons.
They've seemingly, I think you guys have talked about this on the lab too. They've kind of embraced that villain type role. And that's been a good thing, I think, for the team, to embrace that kind of role, because people, listen, I don't know if you guys know this. People aren't very big fans of the Chiefs and dynasties, kind of in general, right? People weren't very happy with the New England Patriots dynasty. Dynasties get a little boring to the casual fan, to the fan of, if you're not a fan of the team that's in the dynasty, no one's going to like you. And I think they've kind of embraced that, and they've kind of been able to wear that badge proudly, and a badge that looks kind of good. I'll be honest. I think that looks kind of good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being the bad guys.
Love a good heel. Love a good bad guy. I like the Chiefs embracing it. And yeah, the only thing that fans hate more than a dynasty is the next dynasty. Like, that's the only thing they dislike more, is the next team that's about to be that. So the Chiefs are kind of on that cusp. It's 2 Super Bowls over 4 years. I don't know if it's exactly fair to say a dynasty, but then you look at the other, they made it back to the Super Bowl. They host every AFC championship game. Like, they're there. And so like, fans dislike them greatly from other teams, but I think they're getting close to getting to they're also very respected from fans and opponents. And like, now they have to dig into being that bad guy. And I hope they keep doing it, because that's what makes it the most fun.
I agree. Let's move on to the next question here from Tank the Frank. If Andrew Luck makes it to the Hall of Fame, is the entire system a sham? Now, there's been a lot made of the Hall of Fame system, which is incredibly interesting, of like the people that they let in. I wanted to pull this up, Maddie. I mean, Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame, and he doesn't have the best of numbers. But I agree. I don't know. I don't think Andrew Luck should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that that's like a hot take just because of like years of service and everything like that. But what do you think about that, Maddie?
Man, I think if Andrew Luck makes the Hall of Fame, it's a complete sham. That's
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Did he even amass 100 games in the NFL? Like, not that like
86.
should be the only. Man, he's like
Yeah.
he's almost a full season for him away from. I don't know, and it's not like he was a overly winning QB. He was a very good QB. His teams won, but it's not like they were like, winning or only losing 2 or 3 games every year. They didn't really have a deep playoff run or anything. Like, I don't really know what you have to put the Andrew Luck into the Hall of Fame. I think Joe Namath was a great one you brought up because like the stats are bad, but like he had his time. Like he won, he did the thing, and the Hall of Fame to me, I guess, is you can't tell the story of football without it. There's a good chunk. There's a pretty big part of football that I think gets missing a little bit if you just completely exclude Joe Namath. Like you're missing some meat.
Sure.
If you talk NFL and never mention Andrew Luck, and like, okay.
Yeah. Looking at Joe Namath's career, 140 games, quarterback record 62 and 63 and 4.
That's bad.
That's not good. 27,000 yards, 27,663, 173 touchdowns, 220 interceptions. By the
It's
way,
real bad.
It's not good. Now, I know people have brought up when I've brought up the point about Joe Namath being in the Hall of Fame and how that's kind of a sham. Pass interference like wasn't a thing when in his era, but like nevertheless, Andrew Luck has 23,671 yards, 171 touchdowns, 83 interceptions, quarterback record of 53 and 33. It's tough. It's tough for me to see. I was a big fan of Andrew Luck. I like Andrew Luck, and I like those Andrew Luck teams that they had. Did they inflict some pain on some Chiefs teams? Absolutely. Well, did that seem like Andrew Luck was like a kryptonite for the Kansas City Chiefs for a little bit? Yeah. But I agree with you, Maddie, wholeheartedly that you can tell the story of football without mentioning Andrew Luck. And he was a good player. That doesn't mean that he is not a that he's a bad football player. Doesn't mean he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that it kind of gotten to the point right now in the Hall of Fame where you're letting in a lot of guys where it's just like, does he really deserve to be in there? But they don't give me a vote, I guess. So
the NFL is pretty decent at not just allowing any guys in either. So like they do kind of like I've heard a lot of people explain it to me. Like I've even talked to somebody that has had a vote in the past, and like they had said that like they kind of look at it as if you don't really have a good case to be on the all-decade team, I'm not voting for you at all. And like at the time, Joe Namath, you could go back then and like you could make a case there that he kind of would belong on that 60s team as a quarterback. You could make a case with the Super Bowl win, with that success. Andrew Luck, I don't think you can make any case for that. He was never the best quarterback in the league or even really in contention. And I mean, his stats are better than like somebody like Joe Namath. Joe Namath made an all-pro team. Andrew Luck never did. Like never once. He's 4-time Pro Bowler. We're putting a 4-time Pro Bowler. Like that's your leading accolade. That's what we're putting on your Hall of Fame plaque. I don't know. Like I would, the Hall of Fame would definitely lose a level of like regalness, I think, with an Andrew Luck getting in there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're talking about you mentioned 4-time Pro Bowler and then an AP Comeback Player of the Year. Those are his two like crowning achievements when you go to his Pro Football Reference page. 5-time Pro Bowler for Joe Namath, 1-time All Pro. Obviously the Super Bowl champion, the AFL championship, Super Bowl MVP. He was the Rookie of the Year in the AFL. So I mean, he does have a little bit more illustrious awards than Andrew Luck does. But when you talk about like historically guys who I'm not saying that like Joe Namath was the first person that came to my mind when I think of like people who like shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame statistically wise, because when you look at his numbers, they weren't as good as they are. The dude did win a Super Bowl and everything like that, but I do think that is wildly interesting. I don't think he will be in the Hall of Fame. I should mention that.
Yeah,
I really don't think he will be. But to answer Tank's question, yeah, it would be a sham. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would.
We're going off a tangent here. Oh no, I'm going to tangent.
Okay.
Terrell Davis. Where do you feel about Terrell Davis being in the Hall of Fame? Because that's I guess like where you would have to
Yeah.
start for the Andrew Luck argument, right? Because Terrell Davis essentially only played 4 full seasons of football, and then he was hurt
Right.
for his last 3, and then he was done, and then just pulled the plug. And 4 full seasons of football. Now, in those 4 seasons, 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro
Right.
Bowl, won the Super Bowl twice, kind of carried the Broncos to one of those Super Bowls, like entirely. Like he was clearly the best, or if not like one of the 2 best running backs in the 90s. Like that's why he kind of fits into the like the way I look at the Hall of Fame. I think it's kind of hard to talk about how 90s football went and not mention Terrell Davis at all, because you have to talk about those Broncos teams, and he was such a big part. He was clearly one of the best 2 running backs in the NFL. It's like that's why I leaned okay with him, even though the career was real short. But like I do know some people don't love that, Terrell got in because of the lack of longevity.
Absolutely. And I think that does go into when you talk about Hall of Fame, I think that kind of goes into it as well as the longevity of a career. For me personally, I should say, I think that goes into it in like 78 games, as you mentioned for Terrell Davis. He doesn't even hit that 100 game mark, but it is a personal accolades, which the Hall of Fame is a personal accolade award that I think kind of sets him apart. With, as you mentioned, Maddie, like a 4-time Pro Bowler. That's what we're gonna hang our hat on for Andrew Luck there. Um, it's tough. It's a tough argument. It's not the basketball Hall of Fame where they will literally let anybody in there. But it's not the baseball Hall of Fame where there will be some years where they say, you know what, we don't want anybody to go in here.
Terrell Davis, if you include the playoffs in 1998, almost had 3,000 all-purpose yards. And
jeez,
if you include the playoffs, because he had like 2,200 in the regular season. And in the playoffs, he had over 500 yards from scrimmage. He scored over in that year. What are we looking at? Almost 30 touchdowns, like 27 touchdowns and almost 3,000 yards in one season. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
That's a wild collection. So anyway, people go to Terrell Davis a lot for Hall of Fame stuff. I'm on board that he should be allowed to be in there. I that peak's really, really good, and that's why Jamal Charles should also get in. But I don't see a case. I mean, I don't see a case for Andrew Luck. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I agree. Let's move on to the next question. This one is college football related. If you missed Maddie and I's college football show, we spent, 56 minutes on basically conference realignment and 3 minutes on the ACC is essentially how that went. But anyway, Duncan Angelin asked, what is your opinion on the conference realignment happening in college football? Again, you can go listen to that podcast if you really want to get our full thoughts, but let's give the Cliff Notes version, Maddie. I personally love it. I think I love the chaos. I root for it. I understand, and I put a pull out on Twitter. I think over 200 people voted on it, and the majority said they hate it. Like, I get that. I understand it, especially if your team is involved in like rivalries or being interrupted. I understand, but as like an outside perspective, to see a bunch of these different like teams moving around different conferences and seeing teams that don't usually play each other going to play each other like all the time now, for some reason I love it. I love the chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a rooting interest, so therefore I don't have a rivalry that I need to be preserved, and that makes it okay with me. I'm fine. Just add different teams to different conferences. Listen, in the perfect world, it's going to end up with 2 super conferences that are going to play each other essentially in a playoff, and the Big 12 is going to kind of be hanging out there looking at them, wondering, what they got going on, right? And I'm okay with that. We're already heading that way anyway. Just go ahead and do it and get to that point where we put all the best teams that are always playing each other. I no longer need to see Alabama play, a Northwestern Arkansas Tech University. It's just, I get why a school wants that as kind of a reset and to get, get some of their money in and all this stuff. Like, I, as a fan, don't need to see it. The rivalries that matter to me as like unbiased, not a fan of either team, are going to be preserved because the teams that are really, really good are going to find a way to make sure they still play, that are making their money. They're going to still play those teams. So I'm cool with it. I like it. Keep going down this path, in my opinion, but I understand why fans of certain teams get upset when they lose some of their favorite rivalries.
Maddie, I had this thought yesterday, and I don't know I don't even know if I've brought it up to you until right now. Do you think the expanded playoff, with it going to, what is it going to now? 12? Is it 12? I know they talked about going to 16 eventually. Is it 12 right now? Okay. Do you think that will kind of create, I think that'll create, listen to me, I think it will create more rivalries in terms of that regard, and maybe traditional rivalries not necessarily fall to the wayside, but rivalries created in the college football playoff will then take higher precedence. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I think the 12-team playoff is also only set in for this year and next year, I think. So it's only technically 2 years guaranteed. And then who knows where it's going after that. So we'll see.
64.
But oh boy. But yes, like that's one thing. And then it's kind of like the NFL, right? Like, yes, you have rivalries within your division. And I think these big conferences are going to try to maintain some of those as they add new teams with these little pod systems and stuff that they're doing, or these like protected games. But what's going to happen is you're going to have teams that are constantly good that play in, to the same level every year, and they're going to routinely see each other in the playoffs. And like that to me is just as much fun, especially again, as a non-fan, that's probably more fun than just seeing, Alabama and Auburn, even though Auburn's terrible, just to see what kind of magic if they can upset. I'm like, okay, the upset's cool, but I don't get psyched all year waiting for Alabama Auburn because I know that one team is significantly better than the other and that Auburn is just playing their entire season to upset them. Like that doesn't excite me as much as waiting to see Georgia and Alabama in the SEC title game. That has a lot more vitriol for me, a lot more excitement.
What they should do is they should go, as you mentioned, 2 conferences. Maybe let's go let's say 4 like divisions. And then out of those divisions, you take each division winner. And then after that, you would have, let's call them wild card spots that you could have for the playoffs. And then you could put them, let's say 3 wild card teams make it. And then you could give the first team a bye. The team gets the number 1 seed, gets a bye.
From each conference, right?
From each conference, yeah. So like each of the conferences have their own side, and then they go and they play together, and like the winner of one conference will play the winner of the other conference in basically like a national championship or a very excited, some could say a super type bowl game. I don't know. Maybe that could be a possible discussion that they could explore.
I'm really just here for the money to get figured out to where the Big 12 can be like a relegation league. So like the winner of the Big 12 every year gets to just take the part of the teams that finish last in each one of the super conference. So like the 2 best teams in the Big 12 every year get to move up, and the 2 worst teams every year get to move down. And then now we just have like some, I think, not a big soccer guy, but we got some soccer action going on over here where you got some relegation, you got some teams playing up, and eventually we just end up with the best teams in the same 2 conferences.
I think that's the way to do it.
Sorry, Vanderbilt.
And sorry guys. All right, we got to take a break, but when we get back, we will. We've got some more questions about some college football realignment and even some food takes coming up next on 21 Questions.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into 21 Questions here on KC Sports Network. I'm hanging out with Maddie Lane. I'm Tucker Franklin. We've got this question from Julian K, 10 out of 10 with Rice. He asks, what is Kent's best food take, Maddie?
Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
I will say the Joe's sandwich, the Z-Man on toast. He was the one that said the Z-Man, you put it on toast. That's probably his best one.
What's the other option? It's on a bun. Is that really that much worse?
It's like a hoagie bun, yeah. Well, no, not really. But like it makes it better on. It makes it better on Texas toast. I will say. I'll give him credit for that one.
I mean, like, listen. Kent has sent us to some good barbecue places to eat. He's also sent me to some not good ones that like made me want to slaps my face. And so like there's some okay stuff in there. But for the most part, like his good food takes are very safe. They're right down the middle. They're like, hey, you know what's really good? That their pizza. But then Kent tries to add cream cheese and pepperoni to it, and it just ruins it. So like I don't. They don't exist. There's no such thing as a good Kent food take.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think his take of Z-Man on toast is a good one. And anything with chicken is also a pretty solid bet if he's going to give you advice on chicken somewhere.
Especially the fried variety.
Right, especially if it comes from a barbecue place. Anyhow, let's move on to Bones Jackson. He asks us, do you get happy that football is starting or sad summer is ending. Maddie, I'm actually a summer guy. I like summer. Very big fan of summer. Tara, my girlfriend, very big fan of fall. Like in July, she's like, I cannot wait for fall to get here. And it's just because she likes the feeling of fall, which makes sense. Fall is a great time. What are your thoughts on football starting or sad summers ending?
Well, I hate the heat. The heat can
Mm,
kick rocks. Not a
mm,
fan of the heat. I sweat enough as it is. I have a very old house. It does not hold out the heat very well. So like I'm always I like the summer. I like once we get out of when it's, quote unquote cold here in North Carolina and then it starts warming up. I like that idea because I also don't need it to be winter. Like I like the warm, but then I'm ready for the warm to be over. So yeah, no, give me football season. Excited football season's here. Sad-ish that summer's going for sure, but I'll live without having to wake up sweating at 6 a.m. because it's already 88 degrees and only going up.
absolutely fair. I what I do enjoy about I know some people like to live in different places because they can have like nice weather all the time, right? Like a Florida or an Arizona, right?
Sure.
What I like about living in Missouri and Kansas City specifically is I get to experience all four seasons. Sometimes in a week I get to experience all four
You
seasons.
get like 3 weeks of great weather every year, and then the rest you're just all over the place.
Exactly. I I don't mind it personally. I know a lot of people like don't like it. I don't care for. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. What I think is really interesting too. This is going to turn into a weather podcast. Missouri and Kansas have had like the most severe weather warnings in like the last month and a half than any other state in the union, which is kind of a crazy thing uh,
Interesting.
to think about. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We've had a lot of tornadoes, a lot of tornadic activity.
That does tend to happen there in the Missouri, Kansas alleyway, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
of the United States during tornado season.
Some would call it a tornado alley. All right, let's get to Mike Denny's question here. I think that this is a layup. I think this is an easy
Oh
question,
yeah,
Maddie.
yeah.
Mike Denny, what pro sport would you like to see added to Kansas City? It's the NBA.
Oh, I thought we were saying curling.
That would be a cool one. We've already got professional bull riding, so I mean, that would happen. I think on Saturday. I think Creed was out there. Creed's like an ambassador
Right.
for the Kansas City Outlaws. I don't. I mean,
Checks out.
yeah,
No, I mean it's basketball. The answer is basketball. I'm sure some other people in the world would like hockey to be in Kansas City. I think
for sure.
minor league hockey teams have always had a pretty good turnout and a pretty good run. And they still have the Mavericks are still going strong out there. When I was younger, a lot of Casey Blades games. So like it's always been good out there for the hockey scene. But like I think basketball is where both of us would get very excited. I don't think it's particularly close.
I agree. Lee 87 asks, rank your impression of this training camp on the cheeseburger scale for me
Cheeseburger
so
scales
far.
back, baby.
Yep.
Cheeseburger scale is back. Okay, now I got to remember McDonald's being the absolute worst. I think we had one
Mhm.
coming in as just slightly below average. We did what did we end up with next? Was the Westport Flea Market burger was
That's a
above
good one.
average, and then the best one, according to Andy Reid, this is not my rankings, was Town Topic. This training camp, Town Topic, because training camp's always great. I mean, training camp's not bad as long as stars don't get hurt. It's all at training camp's always gonna be Town Topic. Pour one out for Nizzy Johnson. Stinks that Charles O'Menyhue's suspension got announced in the middle of training camp, but still Town Topic. Young guys look good, veterans look better. There's nothing really to be disappointed about during training camp. It's training camp. Like you can't be disappointed, like I said, unless a major player gets injured for the year.
Every team has hope. The NFL does a great job at marketing and selling hope to every team except the Raiders.
The Falcons
But
exist.
it's true. But the Falcons, yeah, it's true. The Falcons. I was gonna say something nice about the Falcons, I decided not to. Okay. Kyle C asked, if you didn't cheer for the Chiefs, what team would you root for? And if you've been following me on Twitter for long enough, you know that I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. Secretly, I'm a closeted Carolina Panthers fan. So that's who I would be. That's because of Cam Newton. That was a very impressionable years of my childhood. Was a very big, Cam Newton fan when he was at Auburn. Then he went to Carolina, had that run to the Super Bowl, which was pretty fun and pretty magical. That defense was good. I like the color blue. Blue's my favorite color, and that like little baby blue, little powder blue they got going on there. Panthers is a cool name. So yeah, that's what I got for the team that I would cheer for if the Chiefs didn't exist.
Man, I don't know. So back about me, when I was a child, I wanted to be contrarian. So like I wasn't a Chiefs fan until I was like 10. I probably rooted for just other teams and players just to go against like what my dad liked, I guess, just for fun. So like I like Jerry Rice. My first Chiefs game, I'm pretty sure I wore like a Jerry Rice jersey to it. And then my second Chiefs game that I remember, I wore a Randy Moss Vikings jersey to it because I liked players versus like anything else. But like I've never rooted for another NFL team. It's just always been players. So I don't know. I do remember the Panthers and Jaguars being added to the NFL. If I didn't have a team that I specifically rooted for, I would like to think that I would have leaned into one of those. And early on, the Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardle, Mike Brunell, Fred Taylor, Jaguars were more fun, I think, than the Panthers when they initially got there. Like soon, yeah, you had the Dell Holmes run and stuff, but like the Jaguars kind of hit the ground running and were a lot of fun. So maybe I would be in that pit of pain rooting for Jacksonville. I don't know.
Another team I really liked was Minnesota. I think it was because of Adrian Peterson. And I think that's why I write in the same department as you is just because of Adrian Peterson.
It's just all about players. If I'm not rooting for them, that's like kind of how I go with like college football. I just try to find somebody that's fun and then a couple players that I like. Because like it's easier to latch onto a player than it is to be like, I like the scruples of this football organization. Like what would my connection be to the Arizona Cardinals? Like you know what I mean? So it's just, I think it would just be kind of picking players. But yeah, maybe it would have been Jacksonville just because of they were a new team added and that kind of puts everybody on the even playing field.
Let's get back to a camp question here. I think this is a really interesting one from Kay Gumminger. From the start of camp to now, who has worked their way onto the 53-man and who has dropped off the 53-man roster?
Oh, boy.
That's
okay.
I think,
okay, go ahead.
I think the one for me, because when I did my initial 53-man roster projection, I didn't have Justin Ross on there, and that might be an easy answer for me to make right now because I had Richie James instead of Justin Ross. The only reason I had Richie James on there was because of the special teams ability that, Richie James had actually done in New York. He'd actually played special teams. So I was like, okay, he's actually done this before, so I'm going to err on that side. Now we're seeing a little bit more of what Justin Ross can do, and I've been able to see it. Listen, it's a show me state. I live in Missouri. You got to show it to me. Justin Ross has shown it to me. I think that he's kind of made his way onto the 53-man roster. I'm going to have to think about the way off of it. Okay. But do you have any other thing for making the way on?
Yeah, I'm going to Maddie answer this. It's easy for me. Nick Jones, 7th round pick, probably wasn't going to make probably wasn't going to make the team, but like if you were predicting out 53, he's definitely going to be in a 50-50 slot at the very end. Now with the injury to Nizzy Johnson though, and the way he's played well, and it sounds like the reports have been good, and he's got a lot of praise from his special teams play too. I think he's probably pretty safely on now. So maybe he wasn't entirely off, but I think he went from at least, at best a 50-50 spot to a guaranteed on. Playing their way off, I don't know if I see anybody like this Chiefs team. I think has got good depth, but their depth is at like kind of strong positions already. It's like I don't know if anybody's worked their way off. We as KCSN kind of like some of their undrafted free agent linebacker, like rookies that they brought in with the Isaiah Moore and guy out of Indiana whose name I'm just completely blanking on right now. But we put a shot for both of those guys to like make the roster because we kind of like the depth and stuff they'd add. So I don't feel super strongly about that at this point in time. Like I don't think they're going to keep one of these undrafted free agent linebackers. So I guess I can say they played their way off.
Yeah. Isaiah Moore did have a knee injury and he ended up having to have surgery. So he's
Cam Jones. Is that who I'm thinking of? Cam Jones?
You might be thinking of Cam Jones. That sounds about right.
Yes.
Who was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about Isaiah Moore. Sorry.
No, you're right on Isaiah Moore. I was just trying to think of the Indiana linebacker. It's Cam Jones.
Yes, Cam Jones. That's right. I had Isaiah Moore also initially on my 53-man roster because I thought the Chiefs really liked him and the way he did it special teams and kind of that he would serve that same like Jack Conklin role. Jack Conklin's been getting a whole lot of run right now with the ones, and I think that should be taken with a grain of salt because Drew Tranquil has like been hurt and they haven't like thrusted him in all the way yet from coming back from, I think he had a neck and then he had something else. I don't know what his other injury was, but he's been working back from these things. They're not thrusting him into these team situations. I noticed that he was playing a lot there in base, and with Isaiah Moore being shelved for the season, I think Jack Conkling's kind of worked his way onto this roster. I think I'm with you, Maddie. I don't know if I can think of anybody off the top of my head who's played themselves off of the roster. I think I'm more interested in seeing like what they do with the wide receiver room because Kadarius Toney's making the initial roster. It's what they do after that do they cut Blake Bell? Is that who they cut? Is that the surprise cut? And then they add Blake Bell back. I'm not sure what they're gonna do, and I think that's what's so intriguing to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely moves that I think they can make that might surprise us. But like, yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if anybody's just been like blatantly jumped. I guess to put Justin Ross on there, somebody does have to be knocked off somewhere along the way, or I mean, Nick Jones, I guess, played his way in there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's coming off right now. It's kind of in a weird spot. And like, I just don't have anybody. I thought about this the other day. It's like, I don't have anybody. Like if I'm doing a projection right now, I don't have anybody. Like I've been asked who's the surprise cut. I'm like, I don't have a good surprise cut. I don't think.
Right. I think that's because everyone's played fairly well this camp. There hasn't been anybody that's been like, they haven't played very good at all this camp. I can't think of anybody at the top of my head that I've thought negatively about in this camp and the way that they've performed.
I have one, but he wasn't going to make the roster anyway. It's just it's a quarterback/cornerback that can't run. And, I'll let everybody else detect the rest of that.
Fair. Again, there's nothing that was too big of a surprise. So, Maddie, let's go to this one from Jay the Fan. I think this is a really interesting question too. Where would you take the Chiefs wide receivers in a best ball draft? Kelsey is top 10, but then the rest it's a free for all after that.
Tucker, I'm gonna let you know a secret. Best ball became a thing when I stopped playing fantasy, like a wide mainstream thing when I stopped after I stopped playing fantasy football. Yeah. I have no idea where anybody goes in best ball. Never done one. I have no clue how to answer this. Best ball, am I correct in assuming this that no, I don't even know how does best ball work? You'd have to tell me how best ball even works.
Yeah, so let me it's a fantasy football format where the best possible lineup is automatically selected for each team. At the end of the week, the highest scoring players are automatically inserted into the starting spots. So there's no roster management. The team manager drafts will be there for the entire season. There's no need to worry about weekly waivers. And the most popular content, it's like a large tournament basically is how best ball works.
No, is it you guys how do I say this right? Is it like a draft where each team can only have one player, or is it a huge group to where you can just assign anybody to your team?
So I think you have to draft the team still. Okay. I haven't done a best ball ever. Like I haven't done that either, but like I'm aware of what it is.
Right.
And personally, I think I would stay away from the Chiefs receivers, kind of like last year though. It's like in fantasy, the Chiefs weren't a very good fantasy team for receivers when it came to it, because 1 week Juju Smith would have a really big week, and then it would be like MVS, and then it would be Jody Ford. Like there was no one guy was having a big week all the time. So I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable taking a whole lot of Chiefs wide receivers because it's going to be like a spread them out type approach again.
Right. I mean, I think maybe you would snag a Justin Watson or Justin Ross, not Justin Watson, Justin Ross at the end of your draft, because I think if you have a guy that might have a couple games where he just explodes based on what we've seen. And so it sounds like the whole point of best ball is you're not putting this guy in your lineup. You just kind of have him. So if a guy's inconsistent, that doesn't seem to be a huge knock. You're just looking for guys that have explosive games. I think Justin Ross could be a guy that, if camp is any indication, might have a couple games where he gets multiple touchdowns or just has a couple big catches. I think Sky Moore is the wide receiver you'd want in a traditional fantasy league. I just don't know if he's ever going to be putting up enough points, I guess, in a best ball format to really matter, if I'm understanding the concept well enough. So Ross towards the end though. MVS will have a couple big games too. The problem with MVS is it's capped at 3 tops. It will not be more. It's going to be 3 really good games, maybe. So maybe though, because he'll have a big one. It won't be here's 60 yards and a touchdown. No, he'll have 150 yards and a touchdown in a game, or 2 touchdoans, because that's just kind of how his career goes.
They've been airing it out a little bit more too in camp. They've been throwing a little bit more deep balls, and I want to kind of see that aspect play out a little bit more in the Chiefs offense. But we've got a few more questions coming up here on 21 Questions. But first, we got to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
What's good, everybody? It is Ben Heisler from Benny and the Bets here on KCSN. And if you are ready to go the distance and improve your golf game like I am in the process of doing, I want you to head on over to PXG right here in Kansas City and take the PXG Gen 6 Driver Challenge. They are confident in the Gen 6 that they're putting their money where their mouth is. If their Gen 6 driver does not deliver more distance, more carry and roll, higher dispersion compared to your current driver when you go in for a fitting, they got you covered with a $100 MasterCard reward card. That's it. Go in for a driver fitting, see if your driver is up to their driver, and if it is, you get a $100 MasterCard reward card in the process. This is an unbelievable opportunity to upgrade your game with a custom fit PXG fitting. I've had it at the Kansas City store with Alex. It was one of the great experiences I've had in a golf fitting, period. So take the PXG Gen 6 driver all throughout the month of August and get ready to hit those fairways with confidence. So visit your local Kansas City store or head on over to pxg.com for all the terms and conditions. PXG, nobody makes golf clubs the way we do, period.
Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Got a few more questions here up on 21 questions. I'm Tucker Franklin hanging out with Matt Lane here. We're going to get to a question from Craig Stout. He asked us, how much annually would you pay to stream a singular conference's football games?
My initial thought was I wouldn't pay at all because at the end of the day, I have means to get a watch games online that I need. However, I thought about this. If the games are hosted like natively, like if it's on a thing where I can watch the replays and I get to watch all SEC games, however, whenever I want to, based on like their replays and stuff, I don't know. I might go up to like $100 probably to watch all the SEC games if they're saved, right? Like if it's like SEC version of NFL Game Pass, but not broken like NFL Game Pass, I might go up that high. Talk about making draft season a little bit easier.
I was gonna say that's the ballpark I was getting to of like a NFL Game Pass type deal for. If you had that set up for them, that'd be pretty sick too. For the SEC, you would have like the condensed games with the full game replay with the coaches like all 22.
Oh. If you're giving me all 22, I'd probably go even higher if it was like functioning well. But like even I'm just talking like just raw broadcast replays. Even I'd probably spend $100 in a year to watch all SEC games. If assuming that also includes like anytime they play out of conference too, and not as long as one SEC team is playing.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, here's one from Jay the fan. If you had to ballroom dance on live TV with one Chiefs player, who are you choosing for your co-host? I'm gonna pick Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
Want him to arrest me.
I get it. He can probably dance a little bit. I can't ballroom dance. I would need somebody that can either lead it or counter. Is I need somebody that would just make it hilarious.
Creed.
I think I was gonna go Creed. I think Creed might be my answer for this.
That's a strong one.
Yeah, just me and Creed out there ballroom dancing. Chris wouldn't be bad either.
No, he wouldn't be. I'm trying to think of more guys on that.
And make sure there's no wardrobe malfunctions like in Indianapolis, though.
I gotta be careful. Make sure there's no spandex going on. I gotta keep it in the barn. I don't know. I can't think of anybody else. I mean, Travis, I think is a guy. We haven't mentioned Pat, but like
he would take it too seriously. I think he would want to be good at it. Yeah, he'd want to be like good at it, or at minimum like competent.
It's very interesting. Very interesting question that I probably should have prepared a little bit more for. But what makes 21 questions so good is the unprepared nature of how we answer the questions of just like asking us, and we just give you our honest and raw reaction. Like this one from Casey. Maddie, coleslaw has to go with ... The
trash can.
Oh, not a big coleslaw fan.
Not at all. And I
Mm.
think when I lived in Missouri, it was fine. Like you put it out there and I probably wasn't going to eat it or anything like that. But like if I had to poke around on it, sure. Moved to North Carolina, they want to put that on everything. My barbecue sandwich does not need coleslaw on top of it. I promise you. I promise you. I don't need it on there. Don't do it. Make me ask for it on there. Don't just do it on your own. No, it only belongs in the trash now because of what these North Carolinian people have done to whatever they claim is their barbecue by putting coleslaw on it.
Coleslaw is very hit or miss for me. There's something about like some coleslaws I like, and some I'm just like not a big fan of. And I think there's so many variants in coleslaw. Like there's so many different things that you can add to coleslaw to make it taste better and stuff like that. And I haven't put my finger on what it is that makes it sour for me. Because like sometimes Raising Cane's coleslaw, I can eat it and be like, okay, that was all right. And then sometimes that you can eat Raising Cane's coleslaw and be like, that was awful. So I don't know if it's like my taste buds on a day or what it is or what else I eat in that day that changes with it. But I'm very like hot and cold on coleslaw.
Yeah, I never need it ever. Like I said, it can go in the trash. There's like a spicy coleslaw on a very specific type of burger where they're like, hey, we've added extra stuff to it to make it fit in with the rest of this burger so it makes sense. Yeah, it's been pretty good. Like I've had a couple like Thai themed cheeseburgers or burgers, not without cheese, but with a Thai coleslaw on it. Very good. You just can't slap it in the middle of my sandwich just because you want to and expect me to be okay with it. No, you've turned me on the entire food because of how you treated it.
A Thai coleslaw is good though. A Thai slaw. We at the KCSN golf tournament they had a Mission Taco. I should give context to this. Mission Taco was giving out tacos obviously beforehand. It was a buffalo chicken taco. They put coleslaw on top of it, but it was like a buffalo chicken slaw. It was a different type of slaw than it was just like a regular coleslaw. It was good. I do love a good Thai slaw. That's a good point you bring up. But like traditional coleslaw and sometimes KFC slaw I think is good. I don't know. Maybe it's like I've got to do more research into my slaw taste because I think that there's something going on there. Something going on.
I am so here for the new TikTok thing to be you just trying different fast food restaurant coleslaws and reacting to it.
Like, I don't like this one. And just keep going. That's all the video is. Just me taking a bite of slaw and saying, I don't like, no, not this one. And end video. I think that series has legs. Heard it here first. That's some serious legs on that one. All right, Maddie. Yeah, I need to trademark it. This question from K Gummager is for me. Who is more likely to make the playoffs, Sporting KC or the KC Current? My first gut reaction is Sporting. But I know Sporting. I don't know. I don't think any of either of them are going to make playoffs, to be honest with you. But like, I need to check the standings because I think Sporting is in a better striking distance than what the Current are. I apologize. I'm not up on my Kansas City soccer. It's very, very not on brand for me. But I think that Sporting or the Current are last right now, and I do think Sporting is in. Yeah, Sporting is only 2 games or how many points? They're 26. The last playoff spot is 29. So yeah, they're only 3 points away from that last playoff spot. I'm gonna say Sporting, just because I think that they're closer. That's a safe bet for me, I guess.
Your logic is outstanding.
Sound. Look, if I'm nothing but have sound logic, that's all I can ask for. Okay. 2 more questions here. This one's from Casey and Casey again. Shout out Casey and Casey from Casey. What's the latest the Chiefs can add a veteran D lineman and have them ready to play at expectation level in week 1?
Okay. I think it depends. Well, I mean, obviously it depends on who you're going to sign and what they're going to do. Carlos Dunlap can probably come in the week of and know the playbook and go out there and give you however many reps that his conditioning level is up for. And I doubt that a Carlos Dunlap would be completely out of shape. So you're going to ask someone to come in and play 15 snaps on week 1. You could sign Dunlap the week of, and I think get by with that. If you're talking about somebody that hasn't been here before, like let's say, I don't know, Shelby Harris, who would be a great person to bring in this room, whether or not Chris Jones is here or not. He might, I mean, I think starting sometime in the preseason, you would probably like to get him in here before the first preseason game. At the absolute worst, I think before the second preseason game, if you see some of these depth defensive linemen don't have the juice that they need to have just to be able to make it for the regular season. If, Daniel Wises and stuff like that aren't being up to snuff to play in the actual NFL as starting levels, they're not going to be able to give you 15 quality reps. Maybe you go make that move. I think you would like to get somebody that's never been here before, a couple preseason games under their belt to learn with live fire. So I would say before the second preseason game.
I did this research for the video on Friday because I was more focused on the defensive end room, especially with the Charles Omenihu suspension coming down, of like who they all have in that room. Right now, prior to the cuts, which is on August 29th, they have George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, who plays both, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Malik Herring, BJ Thompson, and Joshua Kando. That's what that room consists of right now.
That's better than the D tackle room.
And then, yes, that is better than the D tackle room. And I think that if you do add somebody, I think Shelby Harris would be a great add. I think Carlos, I thought Carlos Dunlap was kind of going to be a foregone conclusion that he was going to come back. Maybe he just doesn't want to play again. Who knows? Maybe he wants a little bit more money than the Chiefs are willing to offer. All could be situations. Listen, if Carlos Dunlap didn't want to play another snap of football, he ended on a great note. Let's be honest. So I could understand him not wanting to come back. The Chiefs are kind of, and I have been very high on this defense, and that was operating under the knowledge that the Chiefs were going to have Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu for the first 6 weeks, and that's not going to happen. I know for a fact that that's not actually going to happen. They might have Chris Jones, but they're not going to have Charles Omenihu for the first 6 weeks, and that makes it a little bit harder on the defense when their defensive line, and especially the interior of the defense, when you have such a game wrecker in Chris Jones. But kind of after that, I mean, you got Tershawn Wharton coming off of an injury. You don't know if he's really fully back to what he was before his ACL injury. That room is that line as a whole getting a little iffy right now in camp. I don't know. I guess I'm going to turn this to another question. Like, what's your confidence level in it as it stands right now going into week 1?
I think they're still going to add at least one player. And so I was looking around when I'm trying to think, we were talking about projections again. Like, I understand that we as fans love BJ Thompson and the idea of BJ Thompson. I like Truman Jones and the idea of Truman Jones and Keandre Coburn. But are any of those guys ready? Is Felix ready to play right now and provide you quality reps? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. And the Chiefs obviously will, but I just don't feel great. And then once you get past them, am I feeling great about a Josh Kando if he has to step in and play, a Daniel Wise, a Matt Dickerson? I don't feel great about a lot of guys they have being forced in there to play reps. I think they not only need to add guys for depth, before the Omenihu suspension here, before the questions about Chris Jones, they needed to add somebody to the rotation. Now they might need to add somebody that can actually eat into real reps. And so I think they probably need somebody at both spots. I mean, with the Omenihu thing, I think they'll need somebody at both spots, but at minimum, they need a guy that can come in and play 40% of the snaps if they need it at defensive end or D tackles. I don't know. I think they'll add someone. If they don't, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough start to the year, I think, for that defense. That's a lot of young guys that got to catch up to where they need to be as the season goes on.
Well, this last question we're going to answer here kind of goes into that, though, Matty. Just DRK asks, how do the Chiefs create any cap space for the season or any late vet additions without a new Chris Jones deal? It's tight. It's really tight.
I'm not a cap expert. I think they can technically still probably save a little bit with Kelsey. I think they could extend Kelsey. I don't know how long his deal runs right now, but I do think that you could extend him and maybe cut out a little bit. Not a lot. It won't be a lot of money, right? But I think you can make that work. Outside him, find a trade partner for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe.
Yeah.
About it. Now, also, we're sitting here in August. Guys available for the most part are probably looking at vet minimum type deals. So you're
Absolutely.
Just chopping off the guys at the bottom of the roster already. So right now, the last couple guys that are counting against the Chiefs cap are a Daniel Wise, LaMichael Pirine, Cole Christensen. They're all making just under $1 million already. If you're signing guys to vet minimum, and then I know there's exceptions and stuff. So if someone's going to take a vet minimum, they might actually just be able to fit it in. No problem. Not a cap expert.
According to Spot Track, I just pulled this up real quick because I was curious. the amount of cap space that the Kansas City Chiefs have ranks 32nd in the league, and they only have approximately. Now this isn't official. This isn't. This is just our best speculation that we can get to as fans from Spot Track, about $446,000 in cap space from the top 51. That's less than ideal. If I could put it kindly, it's going to be very tough to get anything done. As you mentioned, the Travis Kelce deal, I think he still has maybe 2 or 3 years left on that deal. But like, people aren't going to want to hear this. How much longer do you want to put him on contract? I know, like, I Field Yates had a really good, I retweeted it on Twitter, but Field Yates had a really good thing is he's always going to be late. He'd rather be 1 year late on Travis Kelce than 1 year early on giving up on Travis Kelce. And I get that. I understand that. I'm sure the team would probably wants to think that way too. But that cliff is coming. Like, Travis Kelce is eventually going to retire. Like, that's not a blasphemous thing to say. How much longer do you want to extend him? I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah, and so I was briefly trying to look. I think the Chiefs could sign anybody to a vet minimum contract and it wouldn't impact their cap space.
The top 51.
Yes, because even though they're making more, there's the way it is the veteran salary benefit or whatever. The full thing doesn't count against the cap. It straight from the CBA. I'm paraphrasing it all, but they could sign guys to vet minimum. The player would get, depends on how long they played, probably over $1 million per year. But the Chiefs would not lose anything against the cap. So they could sign guys for vet minimum if they needed to actually pay anybody real money, though. I think Kelce, Joe Tooney can technically be extended. They just did it last year, though. I don't want to go back to that well for an offensive guard. That is not where I want to be. But like, that's kind of their only other option, I think. So, I'd say,
yeah,
that's all I got for you.
That's it. It's a bleak way to end the podcast, but I mean, it's tough for
Trade
to
Clyde.
do anything without
Trade Clyde.
doing that. Yes. All right, Maddie. That's going to do it for this week's edition of 21 questions. Thank you guys for listening all the way to the very end of this podcast. We appreciate every single one of you for answering questions. Again, if you want to get in on the question and asking fun, you can go subscribe to our Substack, kcsn.substack.com, for $30 a year or $5 a month. That'll get you access to our KCSN Discord, where in the Discord you can ask us questions in the 21 questions channel. We'll be doing this all the time as the season comes around. Programming note: it's going to come out on Tuesdays in the season. This will come out Tuesdays in the season. Just a heads up. I know people ask me all the time in the Discord when it's going to come out. We're going from Mondays to Tuesdays, so mark your calendars. When the season starts, that's when it'll do. So appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end. For Matt Lane, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will talk to you later.